Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Falcon Insider Show. Once again, I have my co-host, Ricky Baptist.
Thanks, Brandon. Happy to be here.
Well, it's been a minute since we kind of had one of these. It's kind of had a nice long winter break, and kind of a lot has happened since we've been back. So, let's start. Women's basketball. It's been on kind of a great run. They just lost last week to West Texas A&M, but before that, 3 straight wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Long break here, at the podcast. But basketball kind of, picking it back up right away there in the start of January, both going 2-0 on the road and then coming back for 2 home games this week. And women's basketball was as hot as any team in the conference, I'd say, coming into this past week. And tough loss, like you said, on Saturday to West Texas A&M. Still 7-2 of the conference, up there in the top 5 in the conference right now. Not a bad position to be in. Still got 2 home games this week, a couple more home stands, throughout the rest of the season. So we'll see how it shakes out. But it's been a fun season to watch for sure.
Oh yeah, and they played really pretty good in that West Texas A&M game, even though they lost, 77-72. And now they're even having another tough opponent in Lubbock Christian, where they beat them last year for the first time in program history, and they can repeat that. They're right back up there with kind of those first place teams in the conference.
Absolutely. A really tough stretch of home games. Went 1-1 last week. If they can come through kind of this week and maybe finish 3-1 during that homestand, I think Coach Booth would take that. Very similar kind of to last year with the run, the team, very good success early on. One thing Coach Booth talked about during the press conference, though, and I think you mentioned it as well, is how different this year's team is from last year's team and the style of play. I was going to ask you, what are some of those biggest differences that you've noticed between how the team plays this year versus last year?
I mean, I think if you look at this team, if you were here last year, a lot of the players that are asked to now step up and be main players were role players last year.
Got it.
You look at when you had someone like Q and Cameron Lemon, who are kind of good scorers, then you have Andrea Mancha. You have those 3 core players who are scoring, and you look at Morgan Helgensen was maybe in the background last year. Av was still the starting point guard.
Yeah.
But now you're having some of those players say, hey, I need you to take on the scoring load. You look at Key, who's now in that starting center role, like, hey, we need you to take over what Q brought over in the presence and her rebounding and defense. I'm even adding someone like Tasha, who's now helped add that scoring load. So a lot of different role players now who are on the bench, I mean, maybe even hurt as well, like Kamari Portales.
Yep, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Hurt last year, didn't play. Now she's back in the lineup and showing how good she is. And same thing with Buck, who was more of the end-of-the-line bench player who's now playing good minutes. And you have someone like Nikki Green as well.
You took it right out of my mouth again.
You have a lot of these new pieces who had to come together real quickly, and it's showing that they've meshed after kind of a rough start to the season.
It's pretty impressive as an outsider who wasn't here last year to be able to see how Coach Booth has gotten them to play together. I can look and see, the returners that were not coming back and that type of thing. And so you wondered about that. She's done a really good job. It has been fun to watch.
And you even had someone like, I forgot to mention, Michaela Bingley, who was here last year as well, who's good role player, was a good role player last year and kind of stepping up into her role now this year. Yeah. So, it's just a lot of good pieces that this team's accepted they know what they're good at, what they're not good at, and kind of play off each other really well, I think.
And looking ahead to Lubbock Christian this week, I think Coach Booth mentioned that we won that game at home last year. Is that correct? What were the things that you saw, if you recall that game at all, that helped us, kind of pull that out? Or what are some things that you think will help us this week?
Well, last year was just kind of like Coach Booth mentioned. They have a lot of COVID seniors and kind of like the last year. A lot of players that have been here for a while. I want to say they had 8 upperclassmen last year.
And they're all back, she said,
Yeah, so it's like you have so many players from our side. Now we have our 3 COVID seniors back, but you had so much just chemistry with that team.
Yep.
And I think things finally started to click for them last year, where it's like people were kind of shocked to see what we did. And I think this year, Lubbock Christian might be a little bit more prepared. They still have some of their key players back, like Coach Booth mentioned in the press conference. So it's going to be really who's going to be locked in.
Got it.
Because like Coach Booth also mentioned, a mistake here and there for maybe a 2-3 minute stretch, and you're going to lose the game.
Hurt West Texas, yeah, definitely.
So it only takes 3 to 4 minutes of bad basketball, especially in the Lone Star Conference, where either you're going to lose the game or you're going to win it.
Yeah, and really that game, it was the last minute of the third quarter and the first minute of the fourth quarter puts you behind the 8 ball, and it's just hard to kind of catch up and make that ground when you're playing the top teams in the conference.
And you saw that when we played, Eastern New Mexico
on Thursday.
We had that 27-0 run. in the first,
game's over.
And the game's over. Like they did their best to try to come back, but when you let a team score
they were
27,
pretty much even the rest of the way, but
Yeah.
you're not going to cover that kind of ground.
Oh, yeah.
So
That's really what it is. You have one bad quarter, one bad slip up, you're not coming back from that.
And you bring up a good point. 27-0 run on Thursday against Eastern New Mexico. Scored 27 points again in the first quarter against West Texas on Saturday. Shot over 71% of the floor. How important do you think that first quarter on Thursday against Lubbock Christian might be?
I think it's going to be good. It'll be really important, but at the same time, basketball's about runs.
Absolutely.
So we could go on a run early on, as long as it's not a 27-0 run that we're down by.
Well, hopefully they don't go on that type of run.
Yeah. So long if you let a team go on a 10-0 run, yeah, it's huge, but you never know at one point in the game where you can go on a run yourself.
Absolutely.
And so I think as long as we can rebound, play some good solid defense, and like anything in basketball, we got to make our shots. We had a lot of good shots against West Texas A&M that just didn't fall.
Go in.
And so
we're going in the game before.
Yeah. And so I think this team, easily I feel like our team should make the tournament again this year, have a chance to make another deep run. And so I think we have good pieces around. They're all hungry.
Yeah.
And so
a month and a half left to kind of really hone into and put yourself in that best position to make that run when it comes to the postseason. So for sure.
Yeah, another tough stretch. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right.
And kind of continue with basketball. Men's basketball 4-0 the last 4 games. Like you said, 2-0 on the road.
Yep.
And they had 2 good wins, Eastern Mexico and West Texas A&M, who we haven't beaten since 2017.
Yeah, it was Coach's first win, since coming here to UTB over West Texas. I'd say both of those wins were pretty big.
Yeah.
And obviously it doesn't get any easier this week with Lubbock Christian again and then Midwestern. Luckily, all home games, that gives you a little bit of an edge. But overall, for the men, 6 wins in a row in the conference, sitting in first place now, all alone at 8-1. That's kind of unprecedented territory, I'd say, for this team since at least 2018. So. Just they can come at you in all different ways. One of the things I really enjoy about this team is, they got the 5 seniors that all start, all average in double figures. 4 of them have scored at least 20 points in a game, and they can all lead you at any given night.
Yeah.
We saw it this week with, Mason Adley averaging 25 points a game. The week before, Dario Domingo's averaging 26 and a half. Yeah. Before break, Alex Matthews was the one averaging 20 plus. Before that, Freddie Word led the team in scoring for 4 straight games. Yeah. So my question for you, as someone who played basketball at an earlier point in your career, you're going to play a team that, has anyone can be their leading scorer on a given night, could put 25 points on you. How does that affect you as a defense, not really knowing who you need to take away?
Really, you just have to lock up, really.
It's on each individual person.
Because when you have 5 players all averaging double figures, you got to hope, one, someone's having an off night.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if someone is having an off night, someone else is going to step up. Like you said, Freddie Word led the team 4 times this year, but recently he didn't have a point in the game, but he had 16 rebounds.
Exactly.
So it's like this team is really good and really tough for an opposing coach to kind of scheme against, because if a kid has a bad night, he's not going to go away. He's going to say, well, I'm not scoring like Freddie did. I'm going to pick it up on the rebounding side, and it's a huge role. Yep. 16 rebounds from a guard. It's very impressive.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And even someone like Chooks.
Yep.
Comes off the bench. He's more of that rotational player. Maybe call him a little 6-man.
Yep.
Gets in the game, has 7 blocks.
Absolutely.
And so they have a lot of good role players that who could maybe even be stars on other teams.
We've seen it. Another role player, Sherrod Taylor, can come into a game, hit 2 or 3 threes, can get 4 or 5 assists a game, helps out that way. And then another role player that's coming back from an injury, not to spoil it for everybody, but potentially Bryson Burns. Yeah. I think both, Coach Tolan and the team as a whole are really excited about his return and what he can bring to them, and hopefully provide some depth here down the stretch run. That'd be big, because I don't know if I necessarily was thinking about that. Let's say a couple weeks ago about could we add some depth to our bench. If he does that, man, this team just got even a little bit more dangerous, I think.
Oh, yeah, especially because we've been kind of that 7-man rotation, which it's a
tough.
lot. It's a lot of minutes for players, and you have to worry about them not getting in foul trouble. We've had that recently.
We saw that. Shout out again, you mentioned Chooks playing 28 minutes at the center position. Kind of an undersized center. I would say that's probably not his natural position. That's just huge. To get guys that just are willing to go out there and just put it on the line and play. Again, shout out to Coach Tolan. He's got this team humming right now. And, you never know what to expect out of a game. It's not like they're winning these games by 20 or 30 points. They're grinding it out. They're making plays at the end of the game. So from a fan perspective, I just think it's really fun to watch.
And these tough games really prepare you for the conference tournament, because
good call.
when you get there, you're probably not going to blow teams out because the best is the best, and the game's going to be tight. Everyone's going to be, amped up and ready to go. So the fact that they are finding a way to win these games that last year that some of these close games they lost and didn't go their way, I think really shows that Coach Tolan has got this team ready to go, and this team is now locked in and hungry and kind of learned from some of the mistakes they made last year.
Absolutely. I want to give a little shout out to, talk about closing the games. Alex Matthews here, that last game, having back-to-back double-doubles, being able to score kind of the last 7 points for the Falcons to kind of clinch that win there. Just having senior leaders like that, and it's not just him, it's the others as well, DJ Armstrong and Domingos, but having those players that, they were here last year playing those tough games.
Yeah.
And, we talked about having that first win over West Texas. Another one, Lubbock, is a team that they haven't beat before, trying to take that off, the mantle here this week. That's why these guys all came back. And so, they're not going to be phased in those final couple minutes of a game when it's, a lot of people, myself included, when the pressure's on, when want to run away from the situation, these guys aren't that. So, again, just kudos to everybody involved there.
Oh, and kind of like you said, giving a shout out, Mason Adelaide and Chooks, both players of the week. Mason offensive and Chooks defensive.
Yeah. That
14 block, which also then helps the team break the school record of 14 blocks in a single game.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, school record. First time having 2 players of the week in the same week since 2018. I think that school record was a 16-year record, 17-year record. So, yeah, just big things all around. Falcons literally, like I said, in unprecedented territory.
Yeah.
Picked 9th in the preseason poll this year, and now alone in first place. I think if you're Coach Tolan, you would, if you told them this would be the scenario and you got a month and a half to finish the season, I think you'd sign up for that.
Oh, yeah. And kind of like you said, we have a lot of home games now, but now coming up here, they're going to have a nice little road stretch where they got to take care of their business on the road, but the success.
I like playing these tough teams at home, though.
Oh,
first.
Yeah, it really helps.
And then gives yourself some confidence when you have to go play them again.
Oh, yeah.
Even later in the season, we think it's pressure-packed right now. I'm sure this time next month, it's going to be even more pressure-packed.
Oh, yeah, because you still have to play, I think, Angelo State, we had to play them on the road. I think
Final game of the season there,
yeah. So that's never an easy environment to play in.
Our men were in that situation at home last year, lost on a buzzer beater, missed the conference tournament. So you think there's going to be something extra to play for in that game? I would imagine so.
I'd be surprised if both teams were, if not already locked into the tournament, maybe trying to move up a spot or two.
Good call.
To kind of maybe get an easier path to that championship. So we'll see. But, yeah, the Falcons are now tied for 6th in the South Central region.
Oh, good call.
That poll for this week. Kind of early to say. So they've been continuing to rise the last 3 weeks.
It's a good sign, yeah. Number 8 the week before, beat West Texas, who was in our position last week, tied for 6th. Started at number 1 in the region and until recently kind of falling. So, to say that we've already beat, the team that was tops in the region and we're moving up, things are looking pretty good.
Oh, yeah.
And we know it's a tough region, and there's still a lot of season left. Nothing's etched in stone yet. Oh, yeah. But it is sure exciting to see that rise up the rankings.
Oh, yeah. But like we kind of mentioned earlier, both teams will be back home this week. Yep. Playing Lubbock Christian on Thursday, 5:15 and 7:30.
Good call.
And then Midwestern State on Saturday at 1 and 3. So if you're in town, you're not nothing to do, come on out. Should be both good games.
And if you're a UTPB student, I'm going to encourage you to come out Saturday. Something special going on, at halftime and in between games. I can't give it away, but just you might want to be there if you have your bring your student ID.
Yeah.
But good idea to be there if you can. Just take that for what it is.
Oh, yeah, everyone loves some free money.
Okay, gave it away.
But kind of moving on, football season's done, but Tristan Exeline is continuing to rack up these awards, which to everyone in the program and Coach McCullough has mentioned all year, someone that's probably one of the better linebackers in the nation, if not one of the best and top in the nation.
Yeah.
DT Football Elite 100, and now just recently named All-Texas non-FBS team. So, wow.
Yeah, and just a sophomore.
Yeah.
And just to give you some context, the type of players that we had on that list last year were, Hayden Kelly, one of the better players in the country at his position. He's a, coach now for X-Line and the rest of the Falcons. So, that's the kind of company that he's in right now. And, and again, as a sophomore, so, it's kind of one of those where, the sky is the limit almost, you feel like, with him and his potential. And Coach McCullough's raved about him all season long. And I think even, how he finished up maybe even surpassed Coach McCullough's expectations of what he could have done. It was just incredible what he did. Just a guy who's, all over the field, but it's not just tackles and spreading the field, making sacks, tackles for loss, coming up with interceptions and forced fumbles, those types of things. He just impacts the game in a lot of different ways. So shout out to him. We hope nothing great for him over the next 2 years.
Oh, yeah. And it's kind of like you just mentioned when X-Line's in the game or not in the game, you can see the big
And
difference
that's
on
true
defense.
too. That's true too.
You know, and kind of just like you said, just like Hayden Kelly. When Hayden Kelly wasn't in games, you could tell Hayden Kelly wasn't on that field. And so Hayden, who you can easily, arguably make the case for one of the best linebackers in UTPB history,
Yeah.
X-Line is really coming in his own and potentially challenged by the time
Good
he's
guy to
done.
learn from too. And,
Oh, yeah.
You know, I'm sure, you know, Coach Kelly enjoys seeing his success.
yeah.
You know, you always wonder about, you know, guys trying to come for people's records and those types of things. And, you know, do you want to be replaced or do you want to be the? I think as a coach, like you put that aside and you know you're about your player's success. So as far as Tristan goes, to learn from a guy like that, and Coach McCullough and the rest of the staff too are very capable as well. He's in good position for the next 2 years, and he's going to have a fun, exciting team around him. I think Coach McCullough has proven that he's going to have a winner out there and a competitive team. So it'll be exciting to see what they achieve over the next couple seasons.
Especially if they can stay healthy.
100%.
That team's going to be even a lot scarier than they were this year.
Yeah.
Kind of going even back to last year's fall, our student athletes earned a 3.10 GPA, with 42 having a perfect 4.0 GPA, and 155 having a 3.0 and above. So kind of solid to see that we're not only excelling on the fields or respective playing surface, but also in the classroom.
Yeah. Women's tennis, top team with a 3.66 GPA. Men's tennis, the top men's team, 3.65. And then women's soccer, not far behind, 3.60. I think all but 2 teams had a team GPA of above 3.
Yeah.
So, pretty impressive work all around. And that shows the importance. You know, what are these players called? They're student athletes. And the student comes first. And I know it's a cliche, but I think if you're not taking care of business in the classroom, then you're really doing a disservice to your team and what you're supposed to be doing here. And so shout out to all the Falcons this semester taking care of business in the classroom. And, majority of athletes we talk about, you're not going to play pro after sports, those types of things. You got to find a path for you, whether that be coaching like yourself, working in athletics or something outside of that. I think of a guy like Ben Patterson, an engineering major who's crushing, his GPA and being an extremely good wide receiver on the football team. Or someone like Gloria on the volleyball team, a nursing major, like balancing that with being in the middle of your senior season of volleyball seems like to me an impossible task. And she did it. She may have missed a practice here and there if she had to, but she was always there on game day, ready to go, and was one of the most effective players. That's what being a Falcon's all about. So shout out again to all the Falcons in the fall.
Oh yeah, and kind of off script, but good luck to Jeremiah Cooley and Deion Cook, who both have declared for the NFL draft.
Got it.
And so it'll be exciting to see if they can make a practice squad. See if someone picks them up. I've heard little birdies tell me that maybe the Packers could be interested add them to their practice squad. So it'd be awesome to see if.
I wonder what the connection is there.
I think the Packers came through some of their scouts. And I know we had a couple scouts come through during the season to look at them, and so both are really, as you kind of seen throughout the year, explosive receivers, have different skill sets. Deion can throw the ball to, in the vicinity, he'll catch it, make you miss, and then go.
He's the Mr. Highlight Reel. Like Cooley, I think, was like Mr. Consistent. Deion made some plays that just your jaw just dropped.
Yeah, Cooley's the one of those very strong, physical, going to jump ball. So both very, very good receivers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they both made an NFL roster here next year.
Good shout.
Would kind of our
UTPB first if that happens?
I wouldn't be surprised. Especially with our short history of football. So.
All right. And lastly,
kind of another big shout out to Coach Schroeder, who's kind of got the interim title removed and now is our official head women's swimming and diving coach.
Absolutely. Shout out to Coach Schroeder. He's put in a lot of work with the team this year, a lot of dedicated hours and practice time driving to Midland back and forth. Not an easy assignment to ask for someone to do on an interim basis. And kind of took a pretty big risk, had a pretty stable job, and he's been a big Falcon supporter ever since he graduated. It's kind of always been a passion of his, and him and his wife made the decision, let's go for this and support. We've supported, now let's do it in a different way. And not just that, obviously the team has had a lot of success this season, performing really well in the dual meets and different tournaments and things like that, and winning some of those on the men's side, and having 2 players of the week in the same week, the first time in program history for the RMAC for us. So, some program firsts and those types of things. Coach Schroeder, I think, is just elated with how well things have gone, and he is excited, going into the next year and going through the recruiting process right now, while also preparing for the team for their stretch run and then for conference here in February. Not a whole lot of meets before then, so you kind of crash course and get into it. And we've talked all last semester about how difficult this conference is on the swimming side. Like it's going to be an absolute battle, in every single race that you go into, but. Again, it's all about building that positive momentum going forward, and that's what Coach Schroeder has done. Scott Larson, I think, saw that and rewarded him as such.
Oh, yeah, as it should be, like I just mentioned, all the success he's had. And it'll be interesting to see next year when he's finally be able to kind of recruit kids.
Yep.
We have kind of that established coach in the program, because what can he build? He's already done great things with this team, and he's obviously probably getting after it hard and recruiting as much as he can, kind of while being in season. So I feel like once he gets a chance to kind of build his team, he could make even more noise in the conference. And
it's always fun to watch when you have an alum that's invested in the program beyond what just like any other coach might be. Not to say that that's bad, but when you have someone who's poured their blood, sweat, and tears literally into the pool that they're now trying to coach athletes in, it's just something a little bit different.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, they have, I think, 2 meets left?
Just one here at the end of January, and then into conference. So like I said, not a whole lot of prep time, and they've had a big break off since their last meet back in December. But I think that's how Coach Schroeder wants it. He's got a young team, not a ton of experience. He's trying to keep them fresh and ready to go for conference.
Yeah.
So
that conference meet it's a different animal.
It's an animal, but we did see success last year, and had a couple divers going off to nationals, and I think that's potentially on the radar again this year. Potentially a freshman on the men's side and an upperclassman on the women's. We'll see how they perform and how they finish off, but I think that's kind of the goal right now, is to continue that success from last year and see what we can do there.
Well, Ricky, I think that's all I had. Kind of before we go, once again, thank you to HEB for sponsoring this podcast, and until next time, Ricky, Falcons up.